Welcome back to HitPoint, a JRPG news show, an anime news show, a niche news show, a show where Baku and I will talk about anything and everything that catches our interest, including some things that are a little bit different this time around that maybe aren't part of a typical episode of HitPoint. We're going to be testing something out today, but today, and as with every Sunday, we broadcast live every single Sunday, except for the ones we don't, at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be previewing some trailers, talking about rumors, talking about a few discussion topics that we scraped together before the show started, because it's a little bit of a light news show. But you know what? With light of some recent comments and some feedback, we decided, hey, let's go ahead and put on a show anyway and hang out with you guys. So I hope that you enjoy today's show and stick around. The discussion portion will take place toward the second half of the show, but we do have some news to talk about first. But in the meantime, Baku, how you been, buddy?
I've been great, man. This is such a good time to be alive. I just went to my second ever Joe Hisaishi concert. For anyone who does not know who that is, that's the man responsible behind most, if not all, of Ghibli studio animation music. So the man himself was there to direct the orchestra, and it's the second time I've seen his show, and it was just phenomenal. The man is an entertainer, and his daughter was also there to sing along, so that was really cool.
That's so cool. Did they have any like albums for sale or anything that you could pick up to support the artist? Or
so unfortunately it was raining, and it was an outdoor venue. It was an outdoor venue. And there was like a thunderstorm coming. So, what I wanted to do was, maybe stop by the souvenir shop and see if I can pick up something. But then right in the middle of the last song, it really started pouring.
Did you have like a poncho or anything?
We did poncho and umbrellas in hand, and you know what the funny thing is, the last song that they were playing was My Neighbor Totoro, and on there are these like multiple like screens on these like theater style screens that's on top that shows like the orchestra, and then they will like switch back to like the animation scene. So they were playing the scene where the girls is waiting by the bus stop with Totoro with the umbrella. And I was just like, oh my God. And it was just pouring rain and everyone just cheered. So we were joking about how this is not a storm. This is just 4D.
Yeah. Some really immersive showmanship going on there.
Well, a couple of pieces of music that they played were like when the wind rises, Castle in the Sky, Valley of the Wind. All these, and Pocoroso, which is like that. It's like a fighter pilot kind of deal, like dogfights. So lots of winds blowing through, of course, again. And every time they played, there would just be like a gust of wind coming out of nowhere because it's the storm's coming, right? So I'm just like, it's 4D, all right.
Man, that sounds actually really incredible.
It's an experience, man.
How are you feeling after that, though? Like, that sounds exhausting.
A little under the weather right now. I was writing the show. I got a massive headache. I took a nap. I was getting chills. So probably not doing good. Pretty sure tomorrow the full-blown sick is gonna kick in tomorrow if it does. So
that's a problem for your. I was gonna say that's a problem for your work to worry about when you call in tomorrow. But
that's tomorrow Baku problem.
Exactly.
Today Baku is still doing okay. How was your weekend?
Oh, my weekend's been pretty okay actually. I've finally finished my desk. I think I talked a little bit about how I was doing something. I don't know if I just told you, Baku, or everybody, but
I saw your drawing. You showed me the drawing.
My CAD drawing of planning everything out. And well, anyways, I've got a brand new desk set up, a whole new battle station. I posted pictures on my threads and my Twitter. No, Twitter. I don't know. Instagram. I did. I don't know.
Twitter. I saw it on Twitter.
It was also on Twitter. Okay.
It's got to be Twitter.
Yeah. I mean, I did it on a few different platforms, and man, it just looks pretty good, I think.
It does.
If I may say so myself.
It does.
I still hope that I can make content worthy of the space that I'm occupying right now. which is kind of an interesting thing to think about. Am I worthy of my own desk? But so I'm really excited to have that finally finished. Then I finished Trails of Cold Steel 3 the other day, which was really great. And I've started writing the review of that. Speaking of reviews, Trails of Cold Steel 2 video is about halfway done being edited.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I got lots of Trails content on the way for Trails fans, and for everybody else, you know, I that's gotta suck. I think I should be putting out some other content between, and I probably intend to. I probably will, but yeah, it is going to be kind of Trails heavy because that's just what I've been immersing myself in lately. But hey, I also have 10 years of videos that came out before this that you could watch if you're interested in you know, something other than Trails. But right now, man,
you know, you could just edit together like a 24 hours like Derek channel with just your 20 all your years of content.
You know, Linus Tech Tips. I think is that who you're getting inspiration from?
Yep. I've seen it.
I've actually toyed around with the idea of doing something like that, like years ago, where I would just have a spare video computer that would just send out a live stream, and anytime somebody would just click the live tab on this channel, there would just be a random RPG review. Because I actually added up all of my videos, all of my reviews, between like the 105 videos that are out there, I do have like over 20 hours of content. Which is just the game collection reviews. Add in everything else, I have no idea. I kind of don't want to think about it.
Yeah, man. It's just perpetual content machine right there.
Yeah. I don't know. I wonder what it would do to my channel. I'm going to wait and see how Linus does with his 24-hour streams. Because if it tanks his channel, I'm not doing it.
I think PewDiePie started doing that first.
Did he?
And then PewDiePie, I think he did it, and then everyone else was like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. Why don't I just do that? And then, man.
Well, maybe I'll think about it. What do you guys think? Would you just want like the roulette wheel of RNG to decide whatever is playing live on my channel? Let me know, because it would be really easy to do.
Yeah.
So, you know what? We have some other discussion topics to talk about today, but I did want to go ahead and start talking about one of the comments that we got last week. So typically we respond to comments from the videos that we put out every week, but we didn't end up streaming last week. Basically, it was a pretty light news cycle that week, and I just put out a notice on Twitter and here in the community tab of YouTube, which I have no idea how effective that is at letting people know that the show is or isn't happening. But hopefully, if you guys ever see one of those things, just give it a like to help spread it around so that nobody's waiting. I'd hate to think of like a sad person just like waiting in the rain for the podcast to start, and it just never does. Like that episode of Futurama. My heart breaks. But on that post, we got a pretty cool comment here from someone by Justin, who said, not intended to be competitive comment. As a new fan, I'm a bit confused as to why the pod doesn't extend its gap to accommodate longer news cycles or doesn't convert more of the discussion around non-news related topics. I feel like I speak for the majority to say that the pod isn't good because the news feed provided it, but rather because of the more intimate stories about the RPG history and experiences, and even some of the random non-game related tales, IRL tales. Would you two glorious gentlemen be willing to change the overall format to keep the content rolling without the reliance on JRPG news? Personally speaking, you could drastically shorten the news and trailers reactions in exchange for more long-form topic of the week sort of stuff, which could include a deep dive into anything that you would not, just what's the new? Oh, wait, not much kind of thing. Anyways, ramble done. Much love. Looking forward to the next week. So awesome comment. And
Thank you, Justin.
and kind of eye-opening in a lot of ways because I don't know about you, Baku, but I have gotten somewhat used to hearing the sound of my voice over the last few years, but I still can't fathom that other people just like show up just to listen to it sometimes and to hear me talking about myself and like RPGs. Like I felt like the show, and I knew on some level that this wasn't necessarily the case, but like
Mhm.
the show was about the RPG news, and to a large degree, it still definitely is.
Mhm.
But I think that you and I both really underestimated like how much some people just want to hear us talk about anything, news related or otherwise, you know, and
Yeah.
and anyways, that's one of the reasons that we have a show this week was because of this comment.
Mhm.
Because when I reached out to Baku today, be like, "Hey, are we still on?" He's like, "Actually, just another slow news cycle again.
Mhm.
You want to try out what Justin was talking about?" Because when I saw this comment, I threw it at Baku and I was like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And I thought it was a pretty cool idea.
It was, and it prompted us to have a quick discussion too about what we can do moving forward.
Yeah,
Um, so definitely an eye opener, like Derek said. Not something that we necessarily think about, especially once you get into like a trends of things. You just kind of
it's
does
easy to
things the
fall
same
into a
way.
cycle. Yeah,
Yeah. So when someone comes and he's like, "Hey, you know what? How about this? This could work." It's like, you know what? That could work.
yeah.
Let's see how we can make it work. So we're gonna try that out.
Yeah. So, as we do the show, if you guys think of any news or not news, but just any topics that you'd like us to cover, throw them into the chat, throw them into the comments down below. You know, and I mean, we'll definitely be keeping an eye on chat as we go, but we'll still cover a lot of the news that already has happened, which I already alluded to is a little bit lighter than usual. But yeah. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
that done. Did you have anything
Okay.
else you wanted to add to that, or shall we move on to the voicemail?
Michael Wolf wants us to talk about the old man VTuber group.
The old man VTuber
I
group?
will I will tell you about that later. But yeah, but we
Write
can
that
move on.
down because what even?
Write that down.
Okay. All right.
We'll talk about it. Yeah.
Okay, we got this voicemail here though.
Hello,
Mhm.
hello. SuperDerek. Big fan. What is the classic? A long time viewer, first time caller, whatever. Anyways, I actually have been a fan of the SuperDerek channel for quite some time, and I just now discovered the podcast, which is perfect for me because I work long hours. Having a long
Oh.
podcast to listen to is pretty good. So I just started my Trails journey, playing Trails in the Sky, FC, but I've
Nice.
seen screenshots of Reverie and Cold Steel, and I was like, ooh, they look kind of cool, you know, the anime
Mhm.
aesthetic, the art style, like, everything looks good. So my question is, how long do you think it would take for me to realistically play through the entire Trails franchise, and I'm ready for Reverie? If you give me, like, say, 3 hours a day I play, how long do you think I can actually
3
realistically
hours a
experience Reverie, which
day?
everyone seems so hyped about? Anyway, thank you, and yeah, big fan.
All right.
3
I
hours a
already
day.
did the
Okay.
math. I already
You
did the math,
did.
Baku. Yeah.
You did. Okay.
So, but before we talk about the math, let's just talk about
Mhm.
this. This general discussion here that this brings up. By the way, thank you for the voicemail. If you guys at home would like to be part of the show and leave yourself a voicemail, you may do so at 785-337-3805. Or you can send us a file to hitpoint at superdarkrpgs.com. Okay.
Mhm.
So what do you think about just the general question here about like what's your gut reaction here?
I just did the quick math. It's gonna take you 300 days. I say it's gonna take you 300 days, consecutive play, no breaks, 3 hours per day, 900 hours for the 9 games, 100 hours on average each. If you like it. I mean, look, everyone's different. Some people don't talk to NPC. Some
Mhm.
people will talk to NPCs religiously and really follow their stories, talk to them 5 times, going
Yeah.
back to their previous town just to make sure that I don't miss anything. So if you're somewhere between like I don't care to I really care, I'm gonna say 100 hours per game, average out between the 9 games, 900 hours, 3 hours a day. That gives you 300 days. So, definitely you can do it within a year if you're religious about it, right?
I was gonna say, yeah. So here's the math that I borrowed from howlongtobeat.com,
Okay.
which is a great resource if anybody is really interested. They have different numbers of hours for people who are just doing the main story versus doing completionist runs. So I went ahead and did it for both.
Okay.
So all in, you're pretty much on the money as far as like 900 hours or so for all first chapter, third chapter. I'm sorry, first, second, and then the third Trails in the Sky games, Zero in Azure, and Cold Steel 1 through 4. That is about 858 hours.
Oh,
if you're a completionist.
Wow, I was not far off.
Yeah, you were really close. However, just like you said, it really depends on how much of a completionist you are, because that slices down dramatically to about 440 hours if you are just doing the main story and not really doing a whole lot of the extras. That said,
when you really don't care.
yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know too many people who, I mean, who would play the Trails games and not go for completionist runs. But you could totally do it. It's a viable thing to do.
Yeah,
but I feel like that's
a bare
kind of rare.
bone run.
So at 3 hours a day, just like you said, it would take a completionist 286 days. So it could be done in about a year. Or for just doing the main content, 150 days. Now, I gave him a weekend. If he's doing it, 3 hours a day, you can't do that 3 hours a day, 7 days a week. Stuff happens, life happens, right? So I give him a 5-day work week on this. So he could do it in 30 weeks if he takes 2 days off, 30 weeks if he's not a completionist. A completionist will take him 57 weeks.
Oh, jeez.
And breaking that down to about like 4-ish weeks per month, that would be about 14 months for a completionist. If you're, taking into consideration some days where you're, just not going to play, and some days when you do. Otherwise, 7 months if you're not a completionist. So it really amplifies how completionist heavy you are. But that would get you up to speed for Trails into Reverie, which is honestly surprisingly manageable. Like if you just, and here's the great part about this. He has that budgeted time. He said 3 hours per day.
Yeah.
That's the key. If you can set aside any amount of time per day and apply it to a goal, which is one of the topics that I covered in my how to defeat JRPGs and conquer your backlog. It was all about time management and setting aside some time, setting aside a budgeted time where you can like go through things. And once you have that set aside, you can make a lot of progress. It's just when you are, overwhelmed to the point of not even wanting to pick up the game, and that paralysis that can set in when you're just too overwhelmed by it, that you get stuck.
If I can give just one advice, the caller, if you think that streaming is going to help you get through your backlog, don't do it. We all thought that was going to help us. Like, oh, if I stream this, I'm going to motivate myself to play these games. I'm going to get through it. Don't do it. It doesn't work.
Did it not work for you?
I think 9 out of 10 streamers will tell you that streaming makes their gameplay longer.
It definitely does make the gameplay sessions less productive.
Yeah, wait. It's like if your whole thing is, I want to get through this backlog, streaming is not going to help you. You stream to stream, but no, don't do it for the purpose of clearing your backlog. Anyways, don't do it.
It definitely has not. So I started my YouTube channel years and years and years ago with a secondary objective of getting through my backlog, because nobody's going to watch me review the same game over and over and over. I think, though, that it really has kind of influenced the games that I choose to play as a result of that. But I mean, some people
But,
speed run
has it speed you
RPGs.
up through getting through the
No,
backlog?
no,
you
probably
think?
not. But it has at least made sure that I have been making forward momentum, no matter
Mhm.
like how slowed it may have been if I was going, without it.
That's fair.
It's
Yeah.
it's kind of a balancing act of psychology and different factors, I think.
It's rough, man. It's rough. There's so many games now that came out. It's like, oh, I really want to play this.
Oh my gosh, they're coming out
like
faster than ever.
I know. So our friends over at something classic Quartet, like they just came with the demo, and I'm like, oh, I want to play the demo. I want to like give them feedback because like they're really cool.
Mhm.
I haven't had time to do that.
I know.
not
Me
had time to
too.
do that.
I feel bad. I
Yeah.
have the demo, and I'm like, I need to play this. I'm sorry, Ty.
I've at least played a demo, so
Oh,
there's
come on.
that.
Throw me under the bus.
I showed up in person at the
okay,
booth.
okay.
No, the recent demo, no, I have not touched that one, so I'm with you.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, I hope that was at least informative and inspiring to some of you out there to try to set aside at least an hour a day that you can get into your games and start conquering your backlog, because with even 3 hours a day, you can get through the Trail series in less than a year.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah,
It is feasible, as long as you're not streaming it or something, or try to make a bunch of reviews of it.
You know what I do like about Trails is that Trails has basically become the One Piece in JRPG.
Oh my god, I know.
Because the running joke for One Piece is it's just so freaking long. Like, and the first question anyone asked about One Piece anime is like, how long would it take for me to go from episode 1 to like current episode, right?
Mhm.
And we don't ask that about basically any other anime,
Yeah.
right? Like One Piece is like the anime that everyone asks, and Trails is like the same way.
Yeah.
No one comes to you and say, "Oh, how long would it take for me to beat every single Final Fantasy?" I mean, I'm sure someone have asked, but that's not a frequent question. Trails, that's a frequent question.
It is.
If I start today, how long would it take for me to get to the latest game?
There is a secondary question though.
Yes.
And that is, I think, should somebody feel obligated, obliged to make their way through all of them before diving into other games that they find to be appealing? Because
Yeah.
I think that, what I've said in my video talking about, where should you start the Trail series? It really just comes down to find a place that looks good and jump in. There are better points in the series to jump in than others. Trails of Cold Steel 1 is pretty good. Trails from Zero, pretty good. Trails in the Sky, pretty good. I probably wouldn't jump in at any other point, including Reverie. Would not jump in with Reverie. But if you wanted to, you could start at Cold Steel 1, play through Cold Steel 1, 2, 3, and 4, then Reverie. Well, I would probably do 1 and 2, then maybe You know what? It doesn't matter. Just jump in somewhere. I think you'll be hooked.
The beginning of an arc.
Sooner than later, you will find that you have accidentally played all of the games in the series 3 years later. I didn't play a single Trails game until about 2 or 3 years ago. You can find the review of Trails from Zero or Trails in the Sky FC that I did. I did not know what I was getting into, but it has been a pleasure. Once I really got in, though, it's been good.
Yeah, I'd say jump in at the beginning of an arc is better than like getting hit by choice paralysis and then mulling over it and then never starting.
Oh yeah,
would be the worst case scenario, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
And here's something that I think a lot of people don't know is that a lot of these games, most of them in fact, come with a recap that will catch you up to speed with the previous arcs with like the need to know stuff. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, I'd say I jumped in at Sky Third because I like Kevin as a protagonist as no one ever. Like, right? Just,
Yeah.
I would love to know if anyone in chat right now started this entire Trail series at Sky Third. Haven't played anything else. You just started at Sky Third. Let us know because you are a unicorn.
All right. Well, I think that does it for responding to this particular voicemail. But if you guys have a voicemail you would like to leave us, you may do so at 785-337-3805 or HitPoint at SuperDerekRPGs.com. So we've got some games to talk about that are coming out this week, or came out last week, that we'll be talking about and getting some people up to speed with here. Do you want to go ahead and kick us off with this one?
Heck yeah, let's do it. So, the remake of the first Atelier game, Atelier Marie, had just been released on the 12th for PlayStation 4, 5, Switch, and PC via Steam. Very accessible. The remake actually features something called the Unlimited mode, which I find very interesting because one of the big complaints for the Atelier games is very similar to Persona in a way, where like there's this time element that makes you feel like you're on a schedule, and it puts you like in pressure, like presses you to play a certain way. Well, the unlimited mode removes that, so if you so choose to play that without the pressure of having Marie graduate in 5 years, you could just play that and you can just enjoy the game as you like. Now, of course, if you want to play like the original game and you have to graduate in 5 years, you just want to really get that Atelier experience, you can also do that too. So pretty cool stuff. There are also new social events. Not seen the original game. I've seen people stream the game. It actually looks surprisingly good. So I'm actually pretty happy about it. Yeah. So we do have a trailer. So let's take a look at that.
All right. That unlimited mode sounds really cool because like there are games like Trails of Cold Steel, by the way, that would be awesome to have that. Here, let's check out the trailer. Oh, that's adorable.
Okay, so you say adorable. When I see chibi art like that, it's a bit of a turnoff for me personally. Yeah, I mean, it's subjective. Like some people like it, some people don't. But I think once I saw the gameplay with people streaming it, it's very well put together. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, you know what? This is actually pretty good. Just the art style by itself, not so much. Once you take everything together as an entire package, it's actually pretty good.
I think that looks pretty all right. I mean, I feel like the chibi art style lends itself well to sort of a feeling of like retro RPGs that kind of had that chibi
PlayStation 2-ish times.
Well, I was thinking like earlier than PlayStation 2.
Really?
I was thinking like Super Nintendo was kind of chibi, right?
Super Nintendo.
Yeah, like look at Secret of Mana, for instance.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like that kid definitely had a really big head on a tiny body. Like that was just the style back then, and I think that's why I'm kind of inclined to be like, yeah, that kind of looks all right. But I understand that some people really prefer something a little more realistically proportioned. Yeah. Well, I know some people prefer things
proportion.
Other kinds of unrealistic proportions too.
Okay, not like that.
Speaking of Trails of Cold Steel.
Speaking of Trails of Cold Steel. Yeah, no, I no, but I really like the way it looks, so I'm so glad that they're doing it. And in fact, they were saying that if this does well, there's a good chance that they will bring the other, the like PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 era Atelier games and be remade in a similar fashion. So hey, Atelier fans rejoice. The older games are coming and with newer formats so that you can reappreciate. Or you know what? Maybe newer fans coming in, they can now try the older titles without, having original hardware, say, right? So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's really awesome. Especially because a lot of older games are just crazy hard to either get a hold of or just really hard to afford.
Okay, so I was at a bookstore the other day by random chance, and they happen to sell old games.
Oh, is it Half Price Books?
Whatnot. No, it's not. It's just like a ma and pa shop in the neighborhood, right? So, and I've never stepped foot in there. They sell like Pokemon cards or Magic cards, whatever. It's one of those like comic book stores / games / whatever. I went in. I was looking at the retro game session. And I saw a copy of Suikoden 2 for $350. And I was like, oh, that seems to be the going rate. Oh my God. Yep. Yeah, no one's buying that.
Well, I mean, somebody will.
Yeah, somebody will.
I mean, that's why it's that price.
better way for anyone who's interested in buying Suikoden 2 original American copy for $350 in, I think, good condition. Reach out because I can tell you where to get that.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we have another game that, it's not new per se. We've got it on other platforms, but now Dragon Quest Treasures is coming out for Steam on
Yes.
the 14th, or rather it did a couple of days ago. This is the game that follows siblings Eric and Mia from Dragon Quest XI, and it's kind of a cute game. Kind of, I think it might run better on a PC than it did on a Nintendo Switch, honestly. You know?
Yikes. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't bad on a Switch, but there were definitely some things that could have been graphically improved, and I bet on PC that that's going to look so much nicer.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the game itself goes, I felt like, personally speaking, it was kind of maybe more geared toward like an E for everyone sort of thing. You know, definitely not going to be, you know, taking up the mantle of like a really awesome Dragon Quest game, right? I mean, I guess Dragon Quest games are generally pretty tame too, but there's no Puff Puff in Dragon Quest Treasures. I'll tell you that much.
You deviants, please. It's the story about two children leading like their adventures. Please do not try to puff up. What is wrong with you all?
But anyway, you can get some early purchase bonuses on Steam if you get the game before the 28th of the month, so it may be worth checking out. And if you've never heard of this game before, we do have a trailer that we can watch together here right now.
Yep. I think it's great as a spin-off though. I do respect it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not bad. It is an interesting spin-off. That is an action-ish. I wouldn't even call it an action RPG. It's like an adventure game. Like the combat really is not. Oh man, that does look so much nicer.
Right? That's why I had to talk about this. I was like, whoa.
Wow.
It looks a lot better. Can you imagine playing this with a 4090?
Ooh.
Ray tracing. What? This game doesn't have ray tracing. It does now.
It was, I will say, I remember that it was kind of jarring to like watch an in-game cutscene and then be like back on the world map and be like, yeah, that's not a cutscene. That's a cutscene. Not a cutscene. That's a cutscene.
Still no puff puff though. No AK puff puff for you.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry, guys.
But it's kind of neat, you know, and it doesn't have like there's like an in-game gotcha, but it's not one that you pay for with actual money. You know, there's like some randomized loot and stuff that that it's kind of neat, I guess, if you're into that sort of thing. It's all about getting these
really
treasures that they're showing on screen right now, and like building up your hoard, getting money, and exploring this crazy floating island in the sky.
Yes.
Or series of islands. It's not too bad.
And you can name your cohort whatever you want.
Can you really?
Yes, because I've seen someone done it. Curse words and all. And
oh my
it was
goodness.
Hilarious, but also like but yeah, no, it's fun. Yeah. I like it as a spin-off. I think Square Enix needs to do more of these that doesn't involve a mobile game.
Yeah.
Or forcing it to be canonical.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah. Because the spin-off is like, you can play it if you want, but it doesn't really like change the DQ11 story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. All right. The last game that's coming out that we've got on the list is called Cross Tales. It is a new tactical strategy RPG from Kemco and Radeon. And I know everyone hears Kemco and they're like, ugh, Kemco. But this one actually caught my attention some time ago. Let's just take a quick look. I think it kind of speaks for itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's this one. There we go.
Yes. Yeah, so it genuinely looked like a good game and not just something that they're just like, you know, vomiting out or shotgunning into the ether and seeing what sticks.
Mhm.
Like the character design looks good, the story looks good. I played
Oh,
the
yeah.
demo and it was pretty good.
We watched the trailer for this a while back, I think.
We did. Yeah, and it's partially English voice acted too, so there's also that. So yeah, the battle is actually pretty interesting. It's not exactly like FF Tactics or Tactics Ogre clone. It has its own unique, take on how the flow of battle should be. I don't know how to explain it. Like anyone who's ever played a tactical RPG may understand what I'm saying about like the flow of battle, like how the turns go, how you should strategize. It doesn't feel like just like another Final Fantasy Tactic game. It definitely has its own flow, which I appreciate, and it's hard to get right. I've only done like 2-3 stages, so I can't really say that it's like great or whatnot, but from what I played, it was pretty good. Now if you want to try this game too, the demo is available on Steam, so just go try it yourself. And if you like it, maybe consider supporting it, and if you don't, then just move on and forget that it happened. I certainly think that it's pretty cool that Kemco is actually trying to focus a little bit more resource and do a more polished games. I mean, I've heard that some Kemco games actually has pretty good stories.
Well,
I guess when
I
you
have heard mixed things. Like I
Yeah.
think part of it is that Kemco is not like a monolith, right? Like
Mhm.
Kemco, I think in this case, this is between Kemco and Ridion or Rydon or
Radeon
whatever.
does a lot of tactical RPGs.
Yeah,
so I
so I'm
think they
guessing-
are. I think they were responsible for the battle system probably.
And Kemco might be publishing, or are they developing this? Do you know?
They were developing this. It's co-developed
Okay.
between the two of them. So
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did like story and like art, and like Ridion did like the battle and everything else. Like I wouldn't be surprised.
You know,
Mhm.
I gotta say, I respect Kemco, if only for the fact that they're still going. Like, and they are like they're still going. Like, how
Yeah.
many breakout hits have they ever had? Like, this is like the underdog team, I think, and
Yeah.
they have fans. They do.
Yeah.
But they just keep plugging away, putting together some things here. Sometimes they're better, sometimes they're worse. But what they don't do is put out things that completely alienate their fan bases, which might tie into a discussion later that we'll have. But like I don't know. What do you think?
You know how we talked about like people who has to game on a phone.
Mhm.
Like before anyone bemoans the idea, like we've had viewers who said, I can't game on anything. I don't have a computer, I don't have a console, I only have the phone. Can you tell me something I can game on? Kemco games are all mobile, and they're all like buy to play, like no microtransaction, okay, no
Yeah.
gotcha.
You never hear anybody who's like really just pissed at Kemco,
Yes.
Like you got sometimes when the discussion comes up, you hear from people who will say, actually, they're not that bad. Actually,
Yeah.
some of their games are really good.
Yeah.
But you never
That's-
hear because I don't know. Part of it is that they just a lot of times look cheap, and they
Mhm.
are cheap, and they're just quick throwing stuff out. Just,
Yeah.
yeah, I have an
Low
idea. Let's
budget.
throw this out. That's cool. It's like a sketch, right?
Yeah.
Like not everything
Mhm.
has to be a masterpiece.
Yeah, I'm actually not mad at it, because you know what that allows them to do? That allows them to get a lot of experience very quickly.
Yeah, and I'm
It's
just
like rapid prototyping almost.
exactly, and
You know?
that I gotta say I respect them. I gotta try one of these games at some point and see what they're about. I'm not
Yeah.
expecting to be blown away by any
Yeah.
stretch, but that's cool.
What I'm waiting for from Kemco is, okay, now that we released like 60 RPGs, which I wouldn't be surprised if they have actually released that many of them.
Mhm.
Now that we've released like 60 of these like relatively low budget RPG, now we know, we've learned from these. We've gotten feedback. We know how to make like a really good one. So we're going to push for a relatively good one. We'll partner with this publisher who can give us a little bit more money. We'll
Oh.
do like not a triple A, but maybe like a double A title, right?
Yeah.
That will just blow your socks off. That's what I'm really hoping for. Like
wanna-
rapid prototyping is one thing, but you've got to show us what you've learned from it, right?
Yeah.
You got to demonstrate it. So we'll see. I mean, yeah, that's one to watch. Don't write them out just yet. Is what we're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm writing something down right now because I feel like I just want to see what's the deal with Kemco. Like, what's their story? Like, I've heard that they've just been around for so long, and
They've
never
been
paid
around
them
for a
any
long
mind.
time.
I've
They're
never
not
paid
a
them any
new
mind
company
because they've
Yeah.
never had a breakout hit.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still going. Like, I expected them to fade into obscurity a long time ago, but they keep going, and now this one looks good.
Yeah,
So-
this one actually looks really good.
Man, crazy.
I did have some complaints about the art, but again, it's a Kemco game, so my expectations like pretty low. So they've already exceeded whatever low expectation I had of them. So I'll give it to them.
All right.
All right.
Well, we got a new set of games that have been announced that we can talk about this week. Starting with a remaster here of Yggdra Union or Yggdra Union. So yeah, guys, if you're a fan of Department Heaven games, the remastered version of Yggdra Union is now leaving early access and got a release date for the Nintendo Switch of July 27th of this month.
Yeah.
So just 11 days from now. This, along with news of Riviera getting a remaster in Japan, could mean more Department Heaven games are coming to the West.
I know. I'm so excited for that. Yeah. So they have talked about Riviera recently. It is Japan only. So I just want everyone to be aware that that's the case right now. But, you know, if this does well, there's a good chance that they'll, you know, some other games that they are pretty much ready to port over would be like Gloria Union, Blaze Union. They're already available like in Japan as a remaster version. So, you know, I'm kind of expecting those to be next, right?
Yeah.
They just need to localize it, right? Riviera is in the works to be remastered, right? So that's going to come later, right? Unless they can somehow speed up the, you know, localization process. But I would suspect that things like was it Gloria Union? I think it's Gloria Union and Blaze Union would be coming sooner rather than later.
That's
Yeah.
pretty exciting. All right. Well, we don't have a trailer for that or anything at the moment, so
Nope, no trailer, which is very strange. Just like, God, if someone can just reach out to Sting and be like, you know what you're missing? Just put
You know what?
trailer on YouTube. Put
Yeah.
a trailer on YouTube and in your website.
Well,
you know, it would do
here's
so
the
much
thing.
good.
Sometimes companies do this in order to capitalize on the news cycle. So it's like, oh, well, we'll talk about this because we don't have a trailer. And then next week they'll be like, oh, by the way, here's a trailer. And we talk about it again.
Nope, they're not getting screen time with us.
Nope.
So do you
that's gonna
have one or you
backfire on
don't?
them.
Yeah. Well,
So-
if they have one, let's see, the 27th. If they have one next Sunday, we'll show it off.
Okay, because the game will be coming out by then.
Yeah.
Okay,
no,
that's fair.
Sting is totally using this strategy because of how we do news. Just us here.
Yeah.
They've been watching. It's just the two of us. Yes. All right. So Access Games it's just announced the international release date for the upcoming first-person dungeon crawler with the comically long title Mon-Yu. Defeat monsters and gain strong weapons and armor. You may be defeated, but don't give up. Become stronger. I believe there will be a day when the heroes defeat the Demon King or the Devil King.
Oh,
That is the full title, by the way. That
okay.
is now the I believe that is now the single game with the longest working title, official title. Let's take a look at the trailer.
You know what? Someday I'm going to release a game on Steam. It's going to be a terrible game, but the title of the game
It will have longer title than this.
will be the transcript of this podcast episode.
Oh my god. Let's do it.
All right, let's check it out.
Yes. There you go. That's the title. I was not kidding. I was not kidding. This is the title.
That is quite the name.
It's quite the name. Yeah.
Really, working on that SEO, huh?
Exactly.
Just type in any word into Steam, and this game will come up.
It will come up, yeah. So it is a first-person dungeon crawler, which is a genre of game that I can't do because it makes me feel claustrophobic, but it actually does look pretty good. So if you're a fan of games like, I don't know, what is the Seven Dragon?
Mm-hmm.
Seven Dragon is like a first similar style, or what's that other game?
What, like Etrian Odyssey?
There you go. Yeah, if you're a fan of those kind of titles, I think this one would be like right up your alley.
Imagine being the guy in charge of coming up with a logo for that game.
Right?
And they say, "All right, here's the title of the game," and the designer just looks at them and says, "The whole thing."
The whole thing.
The whole.
The whole thing.
I'm sorry. You want the whole. You want this paragraph.
The localizer be like, is this a
logo?
subtitle? They're like, is this a subtitle? It's like, no, this is the part of the title. Registering this game in the trademark office would be funny. All right. If you are interested in first-person dungeon crawlers, especially this game in particular, is coming out in September 21st of this year, releasing on PS5 and the Switch, which is very strange that it's not going on the PS4. But that's what I've been told. It's only PS5 and the Switch.
Well, maybe they only have a PS5 dev kit. I mean, they're probably not giving those out anymore. Or not selling them anymore. Anyways. All right. Next up, we've got a game called Ratatan. Which, when I first read that title, I was like, Ratatan? That kind of sounds like Patapon or something. Like it kind of has that same rhythm. And then the next line says, the creator behind Patapon, Hiroyuki Kotani, revealed at Bit Summit that he is working with Tokyo Virtual Theory, PH Studio, and Ratata Arts to bring us a Patapon's spiritual successor called Ratatan.
Yeah, exciting news.
The game's producer, Kazuto Sakajiri, told VGC in an interview that this new title will feature over 100 cute characters. Didn't even say how many ugly characters. Over 100 cute characters fighting it out on screen. 4-player simultaneous battles and more adventure and roguelike elements than Patapon had. So, if you're a fan of Patapon, then you need to keep an eye out for this. And we have a trailer for
just a
Ratatan.
teaser. It's just a teaser.
Oh, it's
no
not
gameplay.
Oh, okay.
Just a teaser. Just to get your appetite going. I mean, if you just told me that this is just the sequel to Patapon, I would just buy it. That you know what I'm saying?
Oh, it's still going. Oh,
yes.
My bad. Oh, crap. Can you push play?
I got it.
Ah, there we go.
That's it. It's cute. It's so cute. I love it.
That is truly adorable.
Yeah. Oh my god. I remember playing Patapon like religiously on PSP. That was one of the games that I'll just take it on the go, and it's so much fun to play. So I'm super excited that Patapon is coming back.
I've never played Patapon, so could you give me like a breakdown? What kind of game is this? Is it a niche game? Is it a JRPG?
It's definitely a niche game. Yeah. I don't know if I want to call it a JRPG, but you do build like an army kind of, right? And when you go into battle, it's these like 2D little like sprites, kind of like the things that you saw just now. I mean, it's different in Patapon, but imagine something similar. And then and then there would be these like oncoming enemies that would come against you on the opposite side, and you have to fight them, but you have to like press certain buttons on rhythm in order to get them to attack, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a rhythm battle game. It's hard to explain.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, you've got to play it to see it. Yeah, it is a rhythm game, but it's not like just a rhythm game.
I have a copy. I've just never touched it. Yeah, I've seen it all over the place in like thrift stores. Like it was a really popular game if I'm seeing it so often. So so the fact that it's getting a sequel, that's got to have a lot of people pretty dang excited.
Yeah. It's like half and half, I'd say. It's like it's a half rhythm game and then like half like, kind of like an army building kind of game. So it's fun. You have to strategize on like what units that you would use and stuff, right? So you can't it's not like a pure rhythm game, like, oh, you get a rhythm game, then you don't have to do anything else. Like, no, it's a little bit of both.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So as far as this game goes, we don't have a release date. We don't know what platforms. We don't really know anything else. The company will launch a Kickstarter campaign, though, for Ratatan on the 31st of the month. So
yes,
keep your eyes open for that. Maybe we'll talk about it later, too, as we make progress.
Towards the end of the month, yep. All right. Next up, we've got Izanagi Games and Acquire just announced that they'll be releasing a new 2D, side-scrolling, soul-shifting, sandbox action-adventure game. It's a mouthful.
That's a lot of descriptors.
Thankfully, the title is relatively short. Looking at you, Mon-Yu. The title is Amedama. The game will follow siblings Yushin and Yui. One evening, a group of men burst in and murder Yushin right before Yui's eyes. With only his soul remaining, Yushin sets off on a quest to find his sister before his soul completely fades in 7 days. And if you're wondering how he will be able to do that, that's where that soul shifting part comes from. He will be shifting into different bodies and possessing people to try to figure out this mystery. Who killed him? Where did his sister go? Everything in 7 days.
So it sounds like a kind of a downer.
It's a downer.
Okay.
But I think the art will make you feel a little better, maybe, potentially.
Right, well, let's take a look and see if the art will brighten my spirits a little bit, so to speak.
Because it's beautiful art. Beautiful pixel arts. It immediately starts with rain because, that's not depressing or anything.
Right.
Yeah. It's like an Edo period.
Yeah.
And this is Yushin. And then he will have to transfer his souls into different people to
possess them and
yeah. Oh, not even just different people, even different animals. Look at that. Just, you do a kick in the nut and then transfer your soul over.
Wow, okay.
So now you know how that works.
Yeah. This looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
it's definitely an adventure game.
It's going to be depressing as heck. I can already tell.
That there's a certain level of depression going in here. But it's pretty.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with the depressing game. It's just not my jam. I'm like bright and cheery every day, all day, which is probably why I've gravitated toward Trails.
Yeah, and horror games, right?
Oh, yes.
Horror games. You love horror games.
My favorite. They're so good. Anything to do with ghosts, for sure. I love them. My favorite.
And we have one horror game and I couldn't get you to talk about it.
Oh, too bad.
Dang it. I didn't think about this ahead of time.
Well, I suppose we'll have to think about that another time.
Yes.
But did you have something else to talk about for this game, or did you already cover that?
Oh, yeah. So if that's something that's interesting. So I gotta say, at first when I saw the trailer, I didn't think much of it because it was just kind of I'm like, I don't know what the heck I'm looking at.
Yeah.
But then I read about it and like, oh, you know what? That's actually kind of interesting. It's almost like a mystery sort of thing where the story unravels and it's more about the mystery than anything, the story than anything else. So I'm actually really looking forward to that. So what happened to the little sister? Why was the older brother murdered? I don't know. Now I want to know.
I know.
Yeah, and if you also want to know, good news is that this game will be coming out sometime this year on PC via Steam. So we'll be in the next 6 months, right? Because we're
Yeah.
already halfway through.
And I totally get that feeling of like, what's going on here? Like, and just wanting to get to the root of it, despite the game not necessarily being like the kind of gameplay that I gravitate toward specifically. I'm talking about Loop 8 here right now. Like,
Oh,
that was a game that like it was a JRPG on some level, but it was really like hidden deeply within the game, and very little of it was actually JRPG, and a lot of it was kind of like solving a mystery in a lot of ways, and just kind of wanting to figure out what the heck is actually going on. So I
yeah.
totally get that, and I actually finished that game.
Mm-hmm.
At least I got one of the endings. I'm sure that there are dozens. It seems
Are
like one
there
of those
multiple
games.
endings? Huh.
It's one of those games that I feel like people could like drop so much time into forever. Um,
I kind of want to see how many endings there are. Oh, character endings. The different character endings. Okay.
yeah.
Hmm,
And
interesting.
they're pretty well fleshed out, honestly, all things considered. Um,
Yeah.
so moving along a little bit here, Limited Run Games have announced that they will be publishing the Super Mario RPG inspired game called Another Crusade, which was developed by Dragon Vein Studios, and we have a trailer for that as well.
Yes, let's take a look at that. Yeah, a lot of people have been very excited about the new Super Mario RPG, so I feel like they're just picking the right time to localize. I mean, not localize,
Yeah,
to release this. Yeah,
I totally see it.
yeah. I couldn't really get like the story behind it, but I didn't spend too much time looking because I kind of ran out of time. But there will be some puzzles.
Yeah, even the enemies, the bosses there look kind of vaguely inspired. Is that Gino? That's not Gino.
Is that Gino? Is it? Is that Bowser over there? Instead of Bowser, it's just a dragon.
Just a straight up dragon? Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I respect it. Sure. Somebody was just wearing their inspirations on their sleeves, and that's cool.
I mean,
Anyways.
they've straight out said that this is Super Mario RPG inspired. They're not hiding it. So
Yeah,
it's fine.
go for it. So it's planned to release in September of this year for PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, S, Switch, and PC via Steam, or basically everything but mobile. So
Everything.
keep an eye out for that. If that looks interesting to you, maybe it'll be just enough to whet your appetite before the release of the remake.
Yeah. Now, speaking of limited run games, it will partner with Sunsoft and WayForward Games to bring us an enhanced version of the classic's 16-bit survival horror game, which is the one that I wanted Derek to read, Clock Tower.
Hey!
And they will do so using the limited run game's Carbon engine. This enhanced version will feature a newly animated opening, motion comic cutscenes, a new theme song, and some other quality of life enhancements. Now, for those of you who don't know what this game is, this game actually came out originally, I think, in 1995, which predates, Resident Evil, or predates Silent Hill. And in fact, I think, and maybe don't quote me on this one, but I think the developers of those two series have quoted Clock Tower as part of their inspiration in doing like survival horror. So it's kind of like, it's pretty OG in that space. And the fact that it's actually being released out into the West for the first time officially is pretty exciting.
Yeah. It was originally released for the Super Famicom.
Super Famicom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it never made it out to the West, at least not officially. That we're aware of, anyways. So, no trailer. They only did like a teaser video kind of thing with like a bunch of developers talking, and I didn't think it was interesting. It was just a bunch of them talking about the game that sounded very PR ish. So I'm like, just gonna save you guys like 3 minutes of your time.
Okay.
And whenever there is an actual good like gameplay trailer that we can look at, we'll take a look at it. The game is slated for an early 2024 release on PS4, 5, Xbox One, Series XS, Switch, and the PC, which again is basically everything. So there's no reason not to play it if you are a survival horror junkie like Derek.
Just like me.
Just like Derek. Yeah, absolutely loves survival horror games.
Well, Dongan Entertainment is bringing us yet another classic RPG inspired game here. It's time. This time it's kind of a Shin Megami Tensei inspired RPG called Pry Into the Void. Steam description says, play as Yosef, a young man who has been thrust into the depths of the void to defeat the vile being that has been draining the world of its life. With the ability to pry into the hearts of monsters, he must gain allies who will assist him in his descent. You want to take a look at Pry Into the Void's trailer?
Let's do it.
Alrighty.
It looks really interesting for anyone who is
and
like
it contains
into
flashing
SMT.
images and stuff, so maybe don't
Yeah.
watch if you have epilepsy or sensitivities to that sort of thing.
Yeah, look at that. It's kind of classic SMT vibe.
Yeah.
Mr. Valley needs to play this.
Okay. Yeah, that looks kind of interesting.
Yeah. I don't think
Pixel
you'll
art
play
doesn't
this
look
one
bad at
because it's
all.
too dark. You want the bright and cheery? I don't think this is going to be
I do
bright
like
and
that
cheery.
bright and
sir.
cheery, but you
Yeah.
know. But that's bright and cheery. It's a frog. It's a super frog.
It's a super frog.
Was that a Pikachu?
It might have been. No, it's a Pikachu.
Oh, it's a legally distinct from Pikachu for sure.
Yes, different color and everything. Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think people who are like into SMT are gonna
Like
want
old
to
school SMT. Like
old school SMT. Yeah.
probably not fans of SMT5 specifically, but
Yeah, and not Persona.
yeah. That's
Yeah, this is not this is the old school SMT feel to it.
well.
But no dungeon crawling. So, you know.
So, this game is scheduled to be released in 2023 sometime for PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series X, S, Switch, and PC via Steam. So,
Yes.
again, pretty much everything except for
Everything.
handhelds and mobile and stuff. I guess handheld Switch, so never mind. Yeah, just mobile. So, yeah, keep your eyes peeled for that. And with that, well, I guess it's time for us to switch over to a brand new section. We're just going to be talking about some discussion topics that kind of came up over the course of the week, or just things that we thought of that might be making for some fun entertainment.
Yeah.
So I guess here's something that I heard about primarily through The Completionist when he put out his video earlier this week talking about it. But I think that I saw several video creators talking about this subject. So may as well throw my hat in the ring here too.
Yes.
80,
Throw your hat in.
87, I don't even wear a hat. 87% of classic video games are, quote, critically endangered.
Oh no. Critically endangered.
What up with that? That's the question that I wrote in response to this discussion topic. What the dealio?
Yeah, what the dealio?
What the dealio indeed. So, what do you think of this? I mean, I guess that what we know is that, Kelsey Lewin was involved with this. I think a lot of you might know that name. She was on a lot of episodes with like Metal Jesus a long time ago. Owned Pink Gorilla Games out in Seattle. Super cool Japanese style used retro video games store. And she's part of this other group now that is dedicated to the preservation of video games. And we've known for a long time I guess this is kind of the spiel. Like you and I, we know we've been in the space for a long time. We know that pretty much, pretty much. I was gonna say pretty much 90% of all games ever released, but now we know the number 87% of video games that have ever been released, classic video games that are for previous consoles or before, are just not available in any commercial form today. And the people who make these games, generally, or a lot of people who are in these sectors, essentially, are lobbying for the against our abilities to continue to preserve the games digitally.
Yeah, it's a very strange phenomenon. But just to cite some numbers from VGC, whom did a very good article, a very good write-up on it. We'll link that in the description later. For example, from the sample of Commodore 64 games tested, only 4.5% of them are still purchasable on a modern digital storefront, and that's based on an earlier study. Game Boy family of system games, about 5.8%. And then, so that's a little, that's sort of like what we're talking about, is like all the games that's basically ever been made across all the different systems, not just like in recent titles, of course, but all the Game Boy games, all the Game Gear games, all the Virtual Boy games, even any game that has ever been created on any system.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. So, it's an interesting phenomenon because, and it's unprecedented too, because if you think about it, right, they compare these video games to other forms of art and literature, right? Let's say books. You have the Library of Congress. You have stuff like that acts like as a storage, if you will, of just like books ever written, right? Some kind of repository, right? Films, you can basically transfer from like different medium to different medium relatively easily. I don't want to say it's easy. There's certainly professionals who work on those, but once you modernize it, you could then distribute it however you like. Even from films, like from the old timey gritty films from like the 30s, they can somehow put it together, restore it, remaster it, push it out on Blu-ray if they so choose to, right? Games is not like a film. It's not like a picture. It's not like a book. It's software. No other field that I'm aware of where there's so many people who are so keen on conserving software. No one ever goes like, oh, what would be great if we can have a copy of Windows 95. That would be nice. Right. Or at least there's no mass appeal to it. I'm sure there's specialty like factories where the machine still has to work with like a Windows 98, software or something, which totally exists in like the production like field. Or like airline, that the scary thing where like they're still putting in floppy disk. Like they're still using floppy disk in the planes that we ride.
I think that the IRS still has a lot of their documents in like punch card form.
Yeah. Jeez.
Like, it's
which is
crazy.
Insane. Yeah. But we don't really talk about like, wanting, I don't know, Netscape. Can we conserve Netscape? Like, I'm sure there's some people out there who are interested in having that piece of history, but it's not quite as much as like video games.
Yeah, because I think that, like you said, video games are art and literature as well as software,
and cinematography.
It's
everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's the most advanced form of art that we have as a species has created. Want all the gamers to take pride in that. Yeah, we partake in the most advanced medium to have ever been devised by men. And when I say men, I mean all human. Not Yeah. So that's insane. But preserving that is also equally challenging now because we never thought when they create all these things, they didn't think that people would care to preserve these.
Yeah.
Recall that like video game was a dying like field until like Nintendo somehow like revived it in the 80s. Like it was dying, right? Like people honestly didn't think that video games would have a future at one point.
That was pretty wild.
Yeah. So never mind preservation. They were just trying to like stay afloat.
Yeah.
You know? And fast forward like, from the 80s to now, all of a sudden it's like a multi-$100 billion industry. And now we're coming back and say, oh, those games back in the 80s? What are we doing with those?
Yeah. So I think what a lot of people are probably shouting at their screens right now is emulation. Just emulate the games. And that's obviously that's part of this is like we want to essentially be able to emulate these games. But a lot of sites that host those things, those games, those ROMs and emulators, well, not the emulators, but the ROMs themselves that are the intellectual property of other companies are suing them into oblivion. They are getting in the way of emulation efforts and preservation in that way. And in the past, what they've done is that when taken to court over this sort of thing, when people have said this needs to be preserved, we need to be able to, access these games, from a historical perspective, from the perspective of like a library lending games to or lending books or other videos. We need to be able to preserve that in the same way. And what a lot of these companies have done in the past is they've lobbied and they've said, oh, but the remonetization of what we do ensures that all of these games will always be available in perpetuity, and we'll continue to reap in the money, the fruits of our labors. But what this study that they've conducted has proven is that they're falling flat on those promises. 10%, 13% is it's a lot, but it is not enough to say, that emulation and preservation through the use of ROMs and emulators is something that should be shut down. Like they really need to knock that off, basically. Like we've always, like you and I, we've always known that this was the case. We've always known that like you can't just go play Terranigma on your Nintendo Switch. Like you couldn't do it on a Wii, you couldn't do it on anything ever since the original SNES. This is one of those games that will eventually be lost to time. Eventually, all of the cartridges will die due to bit rot, which is a real concern, along with all of the discs. They will disappear unless they are preserved digitally in some form. And when that happens, if they all die, and if they're all wiped off of the face of the internet, except for like the hard drives of a few holdouts, protecting their hard drives and praying against bit rot, like until that time, when that eventually happens, we'll have lost something truly special. And that's kind of what this is all about, is helping prevent the worst case scenario from happening.
Can I bring up an odd place that I'm thinking about that's actually preserving these games? A very odd place that I don't know if they've looked there or anyone has looked there. What's an odd place?
Hang on, let me think. Are you talking about the web archive?
No.
Okay.
I don't think anyone is thinking this one thing that I'm thinking about.
Go for it.
The odd place that I feel like some of these games are probably being preserved unintentionally are Chinese knockoff systems with like 50,000 games in one. And Linus had covered that, like one of those things recently, right?
Yeah.
And it just makes me think, like, what if they're unintentionally preserving these? Because here's the thing, and you guys may not know this, okay? But growing up in Asia, okay, there are these Game Boy cartridge that they would sell, and obviously I was too young to know this, but it would be like 50 games in one. and then you will have there'll be like a little button on the Game Boy cartridge where you can press, and like
Really?
you can like go to like a root menu,
Oh.
right? And then you can select whatever game, and then whenever you don't want to play that game anymore, you press that button and it will take you back to the root menu and you can select the game again. Is it bad that they are selling these bootlegs and knockoffs? Yes, absolutely. Especially when those games were actually current, when I was still playing the Game Boy. But those same people through the ages have been keeping these and
And republishing them
and
over
republishing
and
them,
over.
yeah, in their bootlegged ways. And now it's like 50,000 games in one in like this laptop that was that laptop, or was there like a weird game system that Linus like covered recently that he bought off like Temu or Taobao or something, or Alibaba or something, right? It's just so bizarre to me that they may unintentionally be preserving a lot of these games.
You may be right.
This is crazy.
The weirdest,
yeah,
backwards way possible. But
right.
I mean, hey, that if yeah, Nintendo's not exactly going to be able to sue them into oblivion either, are they?
I told you no one was thinking of this. I told you. I don't think anyone has brought that up. This is a Baku original.
They're definitely not like all playable in like original quality either at this way.
Yeah,
but
no,
but at least the
not.
Software itself is being retained somewhere.
Yeah. It's just funny to think about that, right? This is not me saying like that's the way we should do it. No. Yeah, I'm not promoting that, but somewhere out there, it's just a funny thought that somewhere out there there's a group of people who knowingly are conducting these illegal activities to sell bootleg consoles, are somehow working towards conserving these games when the companies are lobbying to sue against, foundations who want to do it legitimately, which is ironic to me. But speaking on that, speaking on lobbying and like the ethical pursuit in like the right way to lobby, because there's definitely a right way to lobby and like a wrong way to lobby. People can lobby. Lobbying is not an effort that's
to lobby basically just means to go talk to your senator on behalf of a particular cause. Lobbying is fine.
Lobbying not so much. Yeah,
an exchange.
Professional.
Yes,
professional lobbyists are getting paid to do this.
Professional bribesmen is I think the other word for that. Bribes people. Sorry.
Yeah, anyone can lobby. Anyone can lobby. We can lobby. Like people can lobby. So I just want to make that distinction really quick. And one way to do that is to figure out if there is something. There are two things, right? There's something called norm taking, and then there's something called norm making. Norm taking is to say, are there precedents that has worked in these kind of situation, and what can we take from basically the bright spots, right? Have we seen other preservation efforts in the past that has worked, and can we learn from it? And if not, can we create new norms working with these companies and say, okay, where can we work together to persuade you into thinking that this is a good idea? And that's part of the lobbying effort too, is us gamers really coming together and say, yeah, no, we want to preserve this. This is what we want. Stop getting in the way. But that also means that we have to be educated on what we actually want out of it. Emulation is one thing, right? Having these groups that can serve as like a non-profit library is another thing. But until we figure out what's even the best course of action, it's hard to just, tell the game company to do this and that. Like we need to figure out what's even like the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
bottom line, it's complicated, but hopefully change can be affected. And I guess that the first step to making a change is to know that there is a problem. And thanks to the new study, there is
Yeah.
unequivocal proof that there is a systemic problem that needs to be addressed. So
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
part of the show is so that we can all come together and say, hey, actually, there's a problem. You guys should know about it.
Yeah. All right. I do have I did see the super chat come in, and I'll go ahead and
Mhm.
respond to it now because I think during these discussions it's good to have kind of like an open discussion here.
Oh, okay.
Floppy Dogs
Yes.
does mention, can hardware emulation such as FPGA work with software emulation such as ROMs to deliver the same experiences as physical OG systems and games? And the answer to that is sometimes, but not always. Like a lot of FPGA based hardware based emulation like that with FPGAs. Some of them are really solid.
Mhm. Yeah.
The NES, the SNES, Genesis, basically everything before the PlayStation has cores that are available thanks to, in no small part, the work of Kevtris and several other developers. But I think Kevtris is kind of like the big one who like did a lot of the initial legwork for a lot of these systems.
Mhm.
They can run flawlessly. But even assuming that eventually the other systems are able to be brought up to that kind of level, there are certain systems that will not necessarily work for. The kinds that offer, unique or different kinds of input systems. Like you can get a basic idea of what a Super Nintendo feels like by plugging in any modern controller, right? But
Mhm.
what about the Wii U, which has a
Mhm.
gamepad and a screen built into it, or a Nintendo Wii, which has the nunchuck controller and a secondary control, the Wiimote, or
Mhm.
a 3DS or DS, which has the stylus inputs. Unless you have some very specialized hardware, a lot of that kind of thing cannot be emulated through FPGA systems alone.
Mhm.
FPGAs are great when they work, and a lot of times they work really well. I'm actually looking into getting a Mister myself,
Mhm.
which is an FPGA based system that basically can play so many retro game systems flawlessly, as good as real hardware. It is
Mm.
essentially emulating the hardware. A lot of times just uh, emulation basically just pulls a lot of they call it high level emulation. It basically says just try to get the ends to be close to what you would get out of a system. Don't
Mhm.
necessarily worry about getting exact functionality from point A all the way to point Z. They say
Mhm.
just make the output work mostly right. And
Mhm.
that's why a lot of times there will be some differences that happen when you emulate a game versus playing it on original hardware.
Mhm.
FPGA though is when you're actually creating the hardware in a digital sense. Like you create the processor inside of the processor, you create the RAM inside of the
Mhm.
processor, you create the cache and the timing chips and all kinds of custom sound chips inside of that FPGA, which is really wild when you think about it because it's actually creating virtual, like cycle accurate in a lot of cases, uh,
Mhm.
replacement chips,
Right.
which is just insane to think about that people could do that. Um, so FPGA can be fantastic, but like I said, it's kind of got this bit of a cutoff at PlayStation 1 and forward,
Mhm.
where, and I feel like that's going to be where it's going to be the trickiest in the long run to
Mhm.
maintain and play a lot of these games. Like PlayStation 3, for instance, you're not going to ever have an FPGA that can make a PS3 like,
Mhm.
I mean, maybe, maybe in 30, 40 years. I
Yes.
can't imagine the efforts that would have to go into that. And that's part of preservation and as well as creating the emulators that can do this sort of thing too.
I actually do have a question about all this, and I want to post that question to the chat as well. And
Yeah,
that is this. We talk about preservation, but I don't think we have like a definition of what preservation even looks like.
that is
Like
true.
what so okay, for example, books is that's simple enough.
Hmm.
Like you have the text, right? And
Yeah.
and that's good enough, right? For movies it could be different. For video games though, to what extent would you consider like if you can have it your way, game companies do not get in the way, they're not lobbying. You can do whatever you want. You have a magical wand. What to what extent do you have to store these games for it to be successfully archived?
In the
Right?
context
So
of something like the Wii U,
in the
that
context of presentation, well, in the context of preservation,
Sure.
if you want to say preservation as like a word, but to what status, right? So for example, I'll give some examples. For example, you can say that, hey, as long as I have the base code and the assets and documentation, then that's all I need to say that I've successfully archived a game. And we'll just have to do that for everyone. We'll have like a title and number, like we'll number them kind of like how we do for the Library of Congress, right? Like, and for anyone who lives outside the states, that's what we do with like printed anything.
Mm-hmm.
There's a number associated to every print work, and you can use that number to find exactly that thing and get the content from it. Is that good enough? Which means that I have the source code, I have the assets, in digital form, I have documentations, but I can't necessarily play it at will, right? Because you just have the source code. But it could be replicated if the IP holders so choose to, and it is conserved in the sense that it won't be lost because the third party is holding on to it and responsible for conserving it, right?
Yeah.
Is that good enough? Or are we saying preservation only makes sense if I can access it at any time with or without the IP holder's consent? Kind of like a printed work. Like I can just find it. I don't care who is publishing it, right?
I think that, personally speaking, if I were negotiating this, I would concede that if you have the code and if you've maintained the code and have policies and procedures in place that make sure that it is backed up and that there are copies that are going to last forever, as long as it is maintained in some way, that qualifies. But if you are at any point unable to maintain that, that should then be relinquished essentially to public sector, things such as libraries that would then be able to lend them out. That would be, I think, where I would place the onus in this case.
I would take that as like a minimal. Like personally, I would take that as a minimal.
I mean, if it beats certain things just falling into obscurity for the rest of all of humanity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's the question that I have for chat. If you guys have any thoughts on it, definitely leave us some comments or just throw us some stuff in the chat right now. We'll try to read it as best we can.
So, do you want to tackle any of these other discussion topics, or do you think we should? I was gonna say that went on for a little while.
Do you want to start a war? Is that what you're trying to do? Like, I mean, we can save some of these later, but we can do one more. We can.
Which one would you rather do? Because I have two. One of them's a little spicy, and the other is, I don't know. They're both a little bit spicy.
I would do this only because it's more recent.
Okay.
Yeah, we could definitely do this like anytime. I feel.
Yeah. Okay, that's evergreen. Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that one some other time.
Okay.
So, Baku, what's the deal with Final Fantasy?
It's timely, right? Oh yeah, it's spicy. Oh, what's the deal with Final Fantasy? If you thought Trails fans are intense, you have not met Final Fantasy fans.
So that's the main question here. And that's such a big question too, isn't it? Because that's so encompassing. I think that, I mean, a lot of people really enjoyed Final Fantasy 16. A lot of people. And a lot of people really hated Final Fantasy 16. It's so divisive. It's so split. What's the problem here? What has caused this gigantic chasm between Final Fantasy fans? When did this begin? Can it be fixed? What does Square Enix do?
I don't think it can be fixed. fix this. That this is not an issue that can just be fixed. I don't think.
How does Square Enix bridge the gap? That's such an interesting discussion topic, and one
It
that
sure is.
honestly we're not. let me blow this out of the water. We're not solving this problem today, but I think that, I mean, we've said this before, and I'll say it again because it definitely fits in here, and that is Final Fantasy is like, you ask 10 different people what Final Fantasy is, and you will get 10 different answers.
Yeah.
You know, some people, like I put out a poll a while ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, you know, because in light of the release of Final Fantasy 16, a lot of people were saying, this is not my Final Fantasy. You know, this is not a true Final Fantasy. It's a good game. Some people say it's a great game, but it's not a Final Fantasy. Like, they'll say that. And that's interesting. But who gets to choose what a Final Fantasy is? Is it the fans? Is it Square Enix? Squaresoft. I would be inclined to take their word for it, but I think the fact of the matter is Squaresoft doesn't actually exist anymore. I mean, some of the people from Squaresoft are probably still there, but it's Enix in control.
Sakaguchi gets to tell us, right?
Yeah. Yep, Sakaguchi gets
some say, right?
He's got the final word on Final Fantasy. I would be really interested to hear what he thinks.
I think he liked it. I remember reading about him congratulating Yoshi P for making a great like Final Fantasy game. So I think he liked it. I think. I could be wrong. But so again, going back to the problem, like, why is the fan base so split?
Yeah.
The fan base is so split because of many reasons, right?
Yeah.
And they're all and they all compound into this issue. It's not like there's one thing.
So many facets.
There's so many facets. I'll name a couple, and I'm sure chat can name a couple too, right? And you definitely have some in your mind. One of the reason is because the fan base is so huge. Okay, and what that means is you have a lot of echo chambers.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you know, people are social animals, right? And when I say a thing and 100 people agree with me, then clearly I feel like we're the majority. And if I go out and say hot take, FF16 sucks, and then I get like 100 likes, yeah, FF16 sucks. Oh, that's not even a Final Fantasy. You see all these people that agree with me? I'm in the majority. You certainly would feel that way. But what you may not realize is that there's another 1,000 people somewhere else who say, no, actually, this is fantastic. But see, echo chamber. That's exactly how an echo chamber works. Yeah. So there are all these echo chamber within the great fan base that is Final Fantasy. And everyone has like their own idea of, you know, what it is that makes a Final Fantasy. And they all think that they're the majority.
Yeah.
All of them will think that they're the majority. But if you take like a wider scope and you look at all the comments, the aggregate, you'll realize, like you said, 10 different groups of people have 10 different answers on what even constitutes a Final Fantasy. Like, how do you even define that?
It's a great question. It's really subjective. And I actually threw that question sort of in a way to the audience in a poll not too long ago, asking when was the last true Final Fantasy, and I had to break it down. I had to break it down into 5 different categories because I couldn't have 14, 15, 17. I don't know how many Final Fantasies there were at this point, including spin-offs. But like, when was the last Final Fantasy, like the real one? And there was a lot of people who said current, you know, a lot of people said PS2. It was kind of spread all over, but the 2 main ones were either people who thought that the last real Final Fantasy was current, you know, PS5 gen, or PlayStation 2. So I think that there is this big split that happened around PS2, or after PS2 rather. And if I had to pick which PS2 Final Fantasy game they were probably referring to, I might be putting too much of myself into this. I'm guessing it's either 10 and 10-2, probably not 12 as much, because that's when I think that a really big shift happened in gameplay that took me out of it personally. But I don't know. I couldn't ask any more deeply into that via the poll that I had.
Oh yeah.
So it's really interesting to kind of figure out what happened. And I think that one of the things that happened is that Squaresoft was still mostly in control for the development of Final Fantasy X. I think Squaresoft was in charge of 10 and probably even 10 too. But by 12, Enix had taken the reins.
The executives had taken that. Yeah.
And
That was a huge deal, and a big reason why I was not a fan of 12 in how it came out anyways.
And Dragon Quest was their turn-based RPG that they wanted to succeed. And they're like, well, how do we distinguish this IP against our IP? How do we make them different? And
it was a silly
I don't
question
know
that
if this was it. I don't know if this is what it was, but if I was if I was just gonna do some conjecture, I'd say that's when a big split happened, and that's when, you know, some people and some people still loved 12. Some people loved 13, all of them. And 15, some people really liked that too. But I think that there was definitely a split right after 10 and maybe 10 too. Like some people love the gameplay of 10 too. I didn't really get into it, but
see, I think there's a little danger in this, and I'll say that there are two issues that, well, not issues, there are two things that we want to consider. One is that even within our own community, there's already some level of sampling bias compared to the true population of people who would play the games, right?
I've seen my demographics. We're a bunch of old dudes. Sorry,
there's
guys.
That.
Sorry, fellas.
And it's true. It is true. Like our
we do
audience.
skew toward you know, I'd like to say that we're very diverse with 98% male.
Right.
And let's just say that the bell curve skews a little toward that, you know,
30s.
35 kind of range.
Knew it.
In the
I
age.
knew it.
Yeah,
I knew it.
Yeah. We're not hip and with it anymore.
Yeah, unfortunately not. So what does that mean to the entire population? It's hard to say, right? Because I don't have any data. The other thing is that this is a changing opinion, right? You ask this question today, and where they draw the line might be Final Fantasy X. Ask this question in 10 years, they could draw the line at 13. Ask the question 10 years before, the line could have been drawn at 9 or 8.
7.
Right?
7 went 3D,
or even 7.
and it went away from the medieval fantasy. There was a lot of people at the time of 7's release who did not.
Right.
And now it's like, oh, that's the stuff, man. You know,
I remember that. I was there. I remember that. A lot of people hated the polygon blocks, and they just wanted a good old 2D game.
Yeah.
And they thought it was an absolute abomination. I was there.
I know. It's so funny to think about. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely really subjective. But I will say that as somebody who really likes their JRPGs to be turn-based, 10 was the last one that really got my interest. You know?
Well, you know, before we even talk about 12, you know what happened before 12?
10 too.
No, 11 happened. You want to talk about major shift? You want to talk about major shift in the I'm surprised that people are forgetting.
I've written it off
people
so
have forgotten
hard.
about that. People have forgotten about 11 and 14 happened, guys.
Well,
like they're like, oh, 16 is not even Final Fantasy game. Have you played 11? Have you played 14? Like, bro, like, you want to talk about being different? It's different. But yeah, no, but 11 happened, right? So I feel like 11 is like why 10 was like the last one, because then you have to skip over to 12.
I love how
13.
my brain completely like forgot that 11 existed. The number 11 completely forgot that existed in the context of Final Fantasy.
Right.
Like, what? There was no 11. Oh.
It's still people still play Final Fantasy 11. By the way, like it's still a thing. It's an active server.
Why
People
would they?
still play.
Why did they
Yeah.
number MMO twice?
Well, here's the thing. I think it has something to do with what you were saying, which is Enix like executives might have wanted Final Fantasy to move towards being an MMO title.
Well, with 12's gameplay, I'd kind of see it.
Yeah, and then they are like, yeah, no, just kidding. That's not a good idea. Let's go back to single player game.
Daj42 does raise a good point. He says Dragon Quest X did that too. They made the MMO
DQ10,
numbered as
yeah.
well. So
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, they're trying different things, and they still are, right?
Yeah.
And they still are trying different things. The thing about Square Enix is this: that from almost like a historian kind of standpoint at this point, as a lifelong fan of seeing them go through all their changes, Square Enix has always been a company where they are constantly asking, how come we can't have like the next big hit? You know, they're looking at WoW and they're like, we could do that. They came up with Final Fantasy 11, right?
Yeah.
Remember that WoW was a huge global phenomenon, right?
That recurring money phenomenon.
Right.
Money hand over fist.
Yeah. It's money driven. And you know what's the newest thing now that I'm still laughing about? Genshin Impact. Genshin Impact made $1 billion in the first year, and Square Enix is like, why can't we do that? Let's pump up a bunch of mobile games. You know, it's just they're constantly thinking, why can't we do that? Right?
Yep. Look at all these people who made so much money on NFTs. Why can't we do that? You're right.
And then they invest in NFT, and then look what happens, right? Yeah. So
they're no longer leading; they are following, chasing trends.
And you know why chasing trends is the thing that they do? Because they are a corporation. And what that means is they have to do things safe. Chasing trends is safe because there's a president. Yeah. We know Genshin Impact makes money, so we follow that model. We too may make money versus an unproven, thing. Now, I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. So before anyone gets mad at me, I'm just analyzing from a business standpoint why they would do that.
Yeah, they think it's the safe thing. They think it's
a safe thing. Yeah, when in reality, it's not quite so simple, right? Yeah. But shareholders feel like that's the safe thing to do. That it is not. Companies who don't innovate will eventually die, and that's the problem with Square Enix. You've seen that happen in other, not necessarily game company, but other companies in general. They sunset because they run an innovation. Take for example, Canon. Not Canon. Sorry. What's that? Xerox.
Oh,
Xerox is a huge one. Yeah, they ran through. Xerox used to be a super innovative company. I know it's crazy to think that Xerox is an innovative company.
You mean that company that makes copy machines and,
right?
Or rather, they made Xerox machines.
Yeah, but they used to be. Yeah, they used to be like a young up and coming company. They had these great ideas, and they were just taking the industry by storm. And
I mean, they basically made the first. Well, not the first, but they made. Yeah. Essentially the predecessor to Linux.
Right. Someone's like Kodak. Kodak is a great example. Kodak is a company that used to be super innovative, and then they ran their course. There's a lot. Go through the typical business case study books, and you'll find plenty of these. Blockbuster, same thing, right? They couldn't keep up. So, but they all trying to chase proven trends because they became this big behemoth of a corporation, and then they have to answer to their stakeholders, and they just
risks the way that they couldn't take risks to be able to. And
now there are ways to solve that problem if they're so willing to, but and that's the reason why I respect things like Octopath Traveler. I've always liked Octopath Traveler because they were taking risk. Right. And they made a very polished games that don't follow the Square Enix conventions, right?
Mhm.
It is new. Of course, it's still relatively safe. Don't get it twisted. It's not like
Oh
completely
yeah.
out the box, but they took a lot of different, they took chances with this. Same thing with Nier Automata. They took chances with Nier Automata. Nier was not a game that was commercially viable. Look at all
No.
the previous games, Drakengard
Drakengard.
and Nier.
Yep.
Yeah, none of them sold well. But then they're like, you know what? Yeah, sure. We'll give some money to Yoko Taro. And guess what? Now they're milking that like every chance they get, right?
Pretty
So it's
much.
not
They had that one
impossible.
hit, and now they're making
Yeah.
mobile games of it in order to.
Oh, jeez.
They're
Yeah.
like, more money, please.
Yeah.
And I get it. I get it. So the way that I kind of squared this away in my head, so to speak,
hmm
is I've said it before, and maybe I should keep saying it and hope that it continues to be true. But it's that Dragon Quest is kind of the game that they keep around to stay traditional. They stick to the basics with it, and they keep
hmm
kind of doing a lot of the same thing over and over. But then
hmm
Final Fantasy, they became the game franchise where they innovate, they change. And
hmm
as a result of the constant change over each iterative release of
hmm
change, it has metamorphed into something completely different from what it started out as. And
hmm
in a way, that's kind of completely on brand for Final Fantasy, which has been, you know, as far as gosh, how soon? When did they first implement like speed based character combat changes? Like not necessarily
Like
ATB,
ATB?
but like
Oh,
how differences in character speed stats would
I thought I
affect
thought even I
turn
thought even the
order.
first game had that.
I don't know. I have
I'm
to
trying to
look it up. I
remember.
haven't looked it up, but
Yeah.
then eventually they introduced ATB and
hmm
then like the active versus weight system and like Chrono Trigger. Well, I guess that wasn't necessarily. I think they had something similar though.
No, Chrono Trigger was ATB.
Yeah, yeah.
The
But I mean,
base,
they
the
had an active
base.
versus weight option. I think other games might have had that too, right?
No, weight option only came in later on.
Okay.
That's a quality of life thing.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
original Chrono
Oh,
Trigger
did
was
it not?
ATP only. Yeah,
Oh,
the original. Yeah,
okay.
I think they only implemented that in the DS version, if I
Huh.
remember correctly.
I
Yeah, it's a quality of life thing that they added.
I wonder if they did that for the PlayStation re-release. They might have done it there too.
Might have been that I don't know because I didn't never play the PlayStation, but I'm very confident that in the
Mhm.
Super Nintendo Chrono Trigger that I played growing up was just straight ATB.
Yeah,
I don't think there was weight.
but
Original had weight.
it was
Oh
always
no,
Final Fantasy though.
Alex said original had weight. I guess I just never used
The
it.
original had it.
I could be
Okay.
wrong. I guess I just never did use it.
Because I didn't have the original cartridge for the longest time, so that's why I'm just like,
Mhm.
oh, that's news to me. But
Yeah.
that's really cool to know. But
Mhm.
essentially, Final Fantasy was the series that was always meant to be kind of changing and testing things, trying to make the better system that was more fully realizing like a certain vision, at least when Sakaguchi was in charge. It was always
Mhm.
working toward one end. When Sakaguchi had to leave, that unifying vision behind what Final Fantasy is and is not essentially got handed off to a committee. So it's still
Ah.
changing.
You know what's the first time that Final Fantasy deviated truly, I think, was FF8.
Hmm.
FF8 was the first time it truly deviated. Because if you look at the production schedule
Yeah.
of FF7, FF8, FF6, FF7, FF8, like that particular timeline, Sakaguchi was still very much involved in 7, but 8 was already being developed as they were working on it. So it's like a parallel track. Oh, it's a parallel track, yeah.
Sure.
So that's why someone else was taking on, like, even though Sakaguchi still has input on 8,
Mhm.
it was a lot more hands off into the next generation of like developers and directors,
it became
right?
the black sheep for, I mean, back when that
Yeah.
was the black sheep.
Yeah, back when that was the black sheep. Yeah.
Oh.
So you would notice that FF8 had like a very different tone than
Yeah.
7.
Whatever.
And that's the reason for that, right? And then of course, and then Sakaguchi went and did 9, and that was kind of his like final work, if you will, almost.
Kind of a send off to all of his previous medieval fantasy settings.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's how it worked, and ever since 8, it's been that deviating. Like it's goes back that far where they start making changes.
Yeah, I think that the lack of Sakaguchi's involvement really just kind of became a thing, and with somebody else at the helm, like if Yoshi P can continue making Final Fantasy games, maybe it can reacquire an identity of its own as it proceeds with a new unifying person behind it. But
Hmm.
but I don't know. So far, it's really just hard to even answer the question, what even is a Final Fantasy game at this point. So until you can answer that question, until everybody can answer that question, you're never going to release a game that's going to make people be like, that's a Final Fantasy game.
So I set this on stream, and I think I would say it here too. The problem, that the fundamental problem of Final Fantasy is the same problem as a hot dog. Is hot dog a sandwich? Yes or no? Some people say yes, some people say no. And what was his name?
Hot dog?
Dang
That's a type of taco.
Who is the guy who does like the game theory? MatPat. MatPat
yeah.
went and made like a food theory thing on it. He went to like different groups of people, and he did all kinds of things. How do you define a sandwich? How do you define a hot dog? Whatever. But ultimately it comes down to this. What define a hot dog? If you define a hot dog, I'll tell you if it's if it's a sandwich or not. But first you have to define a hot dog.
Yeah.
Same thing. I think it was like Gainsbourg, one the Supreme Court judge. She was on what's his name? One of the late night host guys.
Larry King or
no, newer.
Like
Comedy
Kimmel
Central.
or
Nope, newer. Comedy Central worked
Daily
with
Show? Colbert Report?
Colbert.
Okay.
She was talking to Colbert, and Colbert asked final question to Gainsbourg. He was said, "Is a hot dog a sandwich?" And she said, "If you define a hot dog, I'll tell you if it's a sandwich or not." Right? And that was really smart, right?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, that's what it is. Final Fantasy. If you come and ask me if Final Fantasy 16 is a Final Fantasy, I will ask you to define what a Final Fantasy is.
Yeah.
And then I can tell you, based on your definition, it's a Final Fantasy, it's not a Final Fantasy. And that's where we're splitting.
Yep.
We can't
until we can agree on the definition, and we never will. Then we will forever be split. So
yep.
So I guess the real takeaway is good, bad, indifferent, doesn't matter. If just enjoy the game. If it's a Final Fantasy or not, that's for you to decide.
I'm hoping the takeaway for our folks at least is don't get too angry or upset if someone has a different view on it, just because fundamentally again is you don't have the same definition on Final Fantasy. Instead, so it's not an insult, you know?
Instead, it's a great opportunity though, if you have a difference of opinion, to be like, how do you define a JRPG? And just find out, or how do you define a Final Fantasy? Like what is important to you, and have a discussion about that, because you'll find some really interesting opinions that way.
Yeah. Well, do you want to ask the second question, or you want to move on?
No, I think we better move on, because that one, that's all about RPG, like it's like development kind of philosophy questions.
It sure is,
and I'm interested. I'm interested in those.
Maybe we'll ask it a second time. I mean, another time.
Yeah. Well. But yeah, if you guys at home have any questions that you'd like us to discuss, discussion topics that you'd like us to just belabor for a while on a slow news cycle day, let us know in the comments down below. But for now, I think it's time for us to switch over to talking about some of the fan and community projects that have been kind of going on a little bit here. Do you want to talk about this one?
But before I do that, Ego Knight is trying to appeal to my dislike for FF15. Oh my god, Baku, these people think FF15 is the real FF. I appreciate you, man. Okay. So for the fan and community project, this is interesting. This is great, especially because I just finished the base Xenoblade Chronicles 3 game, which, let me tell you, that game amazing. let's pressure Derek to start the Xenoblade journey by shaming him on Twitter as usual. But this piece of news doesn't have to do with Xenoblade Chronicles, but rather it has to do with Xenoblade Saga. So,
Or Xenosaga, rather.
Oh, Xenosaga, not Xenoblade Saga. Xenosaga, sorry. In celebrating Xenosaga's 19th anniversary, it's been 19 years.
Wow.
Xenofan Valak Turtle released an entire translated playthrough of the canonical phone game called Xenosaga Pied Piper. Is that how
Pied Piper?
Pied Piper? Pied Piper?
Yeah, Pied Piper.
Pied Piper, sorry. Pied Piper on YouTube. It's there, and we'll link the playlist in the description down below. Now, for anyone who does not know what the heck I'm talking about, well, I didn't really know what I was talking about either until today because I was not into Xenosaga. But apparently, Pied Piper was a exclusive to Japan game and only on mobile phones.
Like what kind of mobile phone?
Like old school flip phones. You know, the ones from like the 2000s.
Like the Nokia Engage, but like probably before that.
No. They see in Japan they've always used these like flip phones. I don't know what it is, but they really like their flip. They still do.
Wow.
They still mostly
flip
use
phones are actually pretty cool though. Honestly, like being able to like. I will say
they love their flip phones.
Here's something we lost in the transition to smartphones.
The flick and the answer.
The flick is super cool, but what's even better, you can't slam a smartphone when you're really angry and you're just like ending a call with somebody. You just gotta like mash the button on the glass really hard and you're like, hurt my hand. No, with a flip phone, you're like, and you slap it shut.
Yes. Oh, I
satisfying.
know. Yeah, no, I love flipping a phone and just answering. Like, you know, like you flip the phone, it's like, yeah, talk to me.
Yeah.
You know, like, hello.
It's like the hacker choice.
Oh God,
they had a flip phone in the Matrix. It was cool.
Yes, I was just thinking about the Matrix.
Yeah,
I was just thinking about the Matrix.
It was the era of the flip phone, man.
It was the era of the flip phones.
There was the kind that had the screen that flipped up, and then there was the kind where the mouthpiece flipped down.
Oh no, they were all kind. You know what? I think around like early 2000s or mid 2000s, they had this whole era of like just exploring different form factors. There was like the swivel phone.
Ooh, weird.
Remember those? Yeah, the slide phone.
Oh, I remember the slide phone. I think I had a slide phone.
Yeah, swivel phones, flip phones. There's all these like different form factors that they were playing with.
Yeah.
And then, you know, iPhone just kind of took over, and then everything just became like improved iPhones. All the smartphones right now are just basically improved iPhones.
There are some dumb phones. My grandfather has one, but but actually, I think that Motorola put out a new Razr that is one of those foldable screen ones.
Oh yeah. That's the new form factor with the folded screen.
Well, I was gonna say they have one that folds longer. Like it's the Razr. It's like a flip phone, but it's just all one big screen when you flip it open.
Man.
I don't know.
I guess we're back to that. We're back to that age of exploring different form factors. Although it's a lot harder to participate now because those things are like $2,000 a pop, and
they weren't cheap back in the day. I mean, some of them were for a while, but
yeah, but you can go through like I don't know, like
they were built to last though.
No, see, back then they had better contracts with the phone creators.
You sign up and you get a
free phone or whatever. Yeah, nowadays that's not like, really a thing.
Yeah, now you just like, we'll just pay it gradually over the course of 17 years.
It's a payment plan. Yeah. I'm like, I don't need a payment plan. I need you to give me a free phone.
Yeah.
that isn't trash. Anyways, go back to Pipe Piper.
Okay, so it plays on a smartphone. No, a dumb phone.
Yeah. A flip phone. Well, it used to be very smartphones, just 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So, definitely not easy for Western fans to access, as you can imagine. So, what they had essentially done is do an entire playthrough of this phone game translated, so that fans can better experience this part of the Xenosaga game, which again is canonical to the series. So it's not like some weird offshoot where like none of this matters. Like this takes place before the events of Xenosaga 3, and if you understand this gameplay, Xenosaga 3 makes a lot more sense than not. Yeah, so that's crazy. And shout out again to Valak Turtle for just doing an amazing service for the fan community.
All right. Now the real question is, now who's going to put together like some sort of summary video that kind of recaps it all and like makes it like episodic, like just watch it like a movie to get caught up?
Sounds like a job for SuperDerek. I don't know.
Absolutely not. I refuse.
Sounds like a
I refuse.
Do we know any like Xenosaga like
Oh, it's not even
content
it's just such a huge undertaking, I'm sure. It would be way too much time.
Well, they can make it. You know what I was thinking? Yeah, have you ever seen like Dragon Ball Z abridged or like Final Fantasy VII abridged?
Yeah.
They should do a Pipe Pepper abridged, animated.
Abridged. That'd be pretty interesting. I would watch that.
I would watch that too. Yeah. I would watch that. Man, that's fun. So yeah, but we'll link the YouTube playlist in the description, as well as the original tweet from that turtle. So go give them a like, go watch the videos if you're interested in learning more about this chapter of the Xenosaga that's basically been hidden from international views for the longest time.
All right. Well, that about does it for all of the fan and community news that we had, but we do have some super chats to talk through. So we tried to handle a lot of those as it came in that were related to the discussion topics that we had, but we also got a resubscription here to the super friends here from Bring Back Fluffy Dogs, who said, "You remembered our anniversary. Thank you for the gift stream. Love you both. HitPoint shirts are fire." Hashtag.
I'm glad you like those.
Yeah, I love them so
great
much.
shirts.
Yeah. And I mean, also, I got these Hype Responsibly shirts you can get from shop.superderekrpgs.com if you were so inclined. By the way, the next one we got here was from Poson Theory, who says, and I hope I said that name right, who says, "Topic of the week, let's go."
Hey.
Yeah, I'm glad that people are excited about that. Hopefully we'll have more of these topics of discussion to kind of cover as we have, the dog days of summer continue and there's not as much news as we would prefer. Next up,
this is kind of a trial run, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I kind of dig it. What did you think today?
I thought it was fun.
I thought it was a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
Jarrett says, "Hey, big fan of you guys. SuperDerek, could you rank the Trails games that I've played?"
That you have played.
Ooh, the ones that I've played. Oh dear. That is. Oh, are you trying to start a war here, man? I'm out here fighting for my life.
We just finished the Final Fantasy talk, and now you want to rank Trails games, man?
Oh man. Okay, but for real,
that's on you, man.
So far, it's hard to say. I know that Trails, I can rank the series that I've played based on what I've played so far. I think that Trails in the Sky was great, but I think I preferred the Crossbell games over that. Trails 2 Azure was just incredible. And of Cold Steel, I've only played 1, 2, and now 3, but I've not played 4 yet. And I would probably say that based on that, Sky was a little slow for it had a lot of information. So I would rank that one probably the lowest as far as the overall goes. Then Cold Steel, and then Zero and Azure and the Crossbell games were the best series, I think, because it was short and to the point and condensed,
Okay.
But I think that's mainly from like a story and pacing kind of perspective. The gameplay in each was really great. And the gameplay, the combat of the Cold Steel series, though, is really solid, and it's just getting better with each new release, I think. So, hopefully that answers your question at least to some degree. But I'm not gonna make a tier list of all the 8 games that I've played right now. But but I think that's kind of where I'm feeling things at the moment. But that said, I still haven't experienced like the really crazy finale of the Cold Steel games.
Oh yeah.
Maybe that will. I
A
guess
little
my dog's
pupper.
very excited. Maybe that'll change
Ooh.
my. Gosh dang it. Maybe that'll change my opinion over time.
Mm-hmm.
Bring back Fluffy Dog. Oh, hang on. Baku, how would you rate your experiences with the Trails games so far that you have played?
You mean with the 3 games that I played?
Yes.
All 3 of them?
Uh-huh.
1 is basically a prequel. 2 was good, and 3, I like Kevin, but not enough to see him in a game where he leads the game.
Really? Okay.
No, I mean Kevin's great. It's just the thing about Kevin is that maybe it's just because I've seen so many animes and I play through so many JRPGs. It's like I'm like, okay, this is cool, but also not something I've never seen or heard from. Like this exact kind of thing.
Sure, he's Vash the Stampede with green hair, but who really cares, right? It's okay.
I would have preferred seeing more Estelle because I like what's not very common, a likable, strong female protagonist, and they had one and they decided to go with somebody else, which is fine, but not what I would have preferred. So
Sure.
yeah, not that I dislike 3. I think 3 from a storytelling perspective was probably the best out of the 3. Getting stuck in like this space without spoiling is not something that I enjoy either. I like towns being around in a whirl.
I gotcha.
Yeah, so
it's definitely a bit of a black sheep. I think it changes the pacing of the game significantly and for the better.
Yeah.
But I could totally see all of those other things kind of making it maybe less enthusing.
Yeah, but the storytelling in 3 was the best out of the 3. So I'm just like, it's kind of hard. But ultimately, that's all I'm saying is a great story. Would have preferred Estelle as the lead still, but hey, it's what it is, and I still liked it at the end.
Okay. Fluffy Dog says, Backlog Battle Episode 1, in diving back into rebuilding my collection, SNES through PS3. The thought of playing all of them is overwhelming, considering the approach by system or genre. Thoughts? Hashtag video game addiction is real. Video game collecting addiction is real.
It's true. That's true.
Yeah. I'm still, I revisited an old video of mine where I collected I got so lucky. I picked up a $50 collection of Sega Saturn games from, I thought it was a Goodwill, but it's actually a Value Village back when I was living in Seattle. And if you guys just want to see the most stupid, ridiculous luck that I have ever experienced in my life, go watch that video. It's called like Amazing Saturn Hall SuperDerek or whatever. And I'm just, because I saw this collection in the store. They thought they were like loose CDs or loose DVDs. They didn't know what they had. I saw it. I was just like, I just saw the case and I saw that the end one was like Panzer Dragoon. And I said, I am buying this. And I picked it up. I took it to the register. My hands were like shaking. I walked out without even looking at anything else in the case, hoping and thinking that they were maybe more Sega Saturn games. Couldn't tell for sure. And then I just started up the live stream and I'm like, I think something stupid just happened to me. I need that. I need this. I need this. I need you to document this actually happened with me as I like go through and pull them out piece by piece.
Oh my God.
And I find some ridiculously at this point especially ridiculously expensive games in there, tied in with some other games that were less impressive but still anyways, yeah, video. Ever since then I've had the itch to continue getting retro games. It's crazy now. You cannot find, I mean, deals like those aside, yeah, I can't even find video games in my Goodwill.
Once in a lifetime, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, especially through the pandemic too, because like I think a lot of people picked up that hobby.
My local Goodwill, if they get a video game, they send it to Shop Goodwill online store. Like they will
immediately.
Yeah, they do not. It does not hit the floor. Same with stereo equipment now, and
wow,
it's basically
they
anything that they
learned.
perceive as it's really
They had
distressing.
learned.
Honestly, I get it because it keeps because people will go in there and they'll buy them and then they'll flip them. So
Mhm,
obviously, like
yeah.
they want that cut, but
Yeah.
it just sucks. You know,
Yeah. Well, I mean, they want to. Yeah. I get that. I mean, as a nonprofit organization, they want to maximize the money that they make, so they, at least from their perspective, help other people, right? So there's
I mean,
that. But
are they a nonprofit?
what, Goodwill?
Yeah.
Oh well, Goodwill is definitely a nonprofit.
Okay.
Yeah. But are they actually using that fund to help the people that they claim to help? To what degree? That's questionable.
Yeah. Okay.
Just like the Red Cross.
Oh yeah. Yep. You mean the
Mhm.
Salvation Army? Them too, I think. Or...
Yeah, them too. They're like notorious for just, not being great with the way that they use their funds. Yeah, let's just put it that way.
All right. Next up, we've got Alvaro, who says Kemco actually developed Top Gear on the SNES.
Top Gear.
Top Gear. Even if it was not a breakout hit, it's extremely popular here in Brazil to this day.
Oh wow.
Well,
that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good to know. Little piece of video game history there for you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us.
Fluppy also says game access / preservation is in a sad state. We should have talked about this when we were talking about this in our discussions.
Oh, yes.
They said, I accept that the companies must make money. However, the purposeful limitation of physical copies to push digital sales, as well as the closing of digital stores, is a bunch of bull.
Yeah, absolutely.
I concur.
Absolutely. I just wish that they would what's the word? I wish that they would actually care about it from like a good of the humanity standpoint, and you really have to bend like companies' arms for them to accept that. So yeah, that's the unfortunate part. Like, just have them do it as like a charity effort. Like if you can convince them to do that. You know what I just thought about? It's the same kind of issue that you have with outsourcing production in low income countries for these like clothing manufacturers. So when I was talking about form making and norm making and norm taking, that's what I was thinking about. Is there was a time when clothing, of course, was created domestically, and then at some point we start outsourcing them. And nowadays I would be surprised if you can go out right now, pick up a piece of clothing that says it's actually made in America.
I mean, you could you can
Yeah.
find one with a tag that says made in America.
Yeah,
But I think that there's also been a lot of scandals about how accurate a lot of those are.
yeah, I mean, most likely you'll find something like made in China, made in Vietnam, made in India, made in Bangladesh, like low income countries, right? So, of course, with it being a low income country, part of that is that there is very lax regulation in the foreign country's part in human rights. And, we've all heard horror stories about factory floors in China and India. There was this huge, like, there's this building that, like, straight up collapsed, like, of just like a garment factory in like Pakistan or something, right? So nowadays you have a lot of these brands who would basically come together to have these like seal of approval of like third party agencies or NGO that would basically enforce these like human rights regulations and working with local government, et cetera, et cetera. Now, to what extent is that successful? I don't know, but if you can turn it into a thing that companies can market, then that gives them the business incentives to, do more of this. So it's just a matter of finding that balance so that we can say, here, this could be a win-win situation, so on and so forth. But again, not really trying to come up with a solution here. Okay. I'm just saying what has happened in other fields and what can we learn from it it's where I'm trying to drive us to think about as we, examine this question further.
Yeah. Next up, Fluppy Dogs also mentions here they've been considering getting a modded GBA, Game Boy Advance. It's got like a backlit IPS screen,
Ooh,
an
nice.
audio upgrade, rechargeable batteries.
Fancy.
Asking if either of us have any experience with this. They say eBay has versus like Handheld Legend, something that plays carts and looks better. Handheld is kind of tricky for me. I don't know. I think that honestly, if I was okay with something that would emulate, I would probably personally get a Vita, like a Vita with like an OLED screen. It's probably the best looking handheld system. It can emulate and play all kinds of games from Game Boy Advance, like really nicely, all the way up to like PlayStation, PSP. It can do a lot. So if you're just looking for that kind of way to play games on the go and have it look nice and like play nice, Vita it's hacked wide open. So is, by the way, also the Nintendo Switch. You can play a lot on the Nintendo Switch. I haven't done that personally, but if you're just
Wink,
looking for
wink.
a good way to play handhelds in a way that, I mean, if you're looking at modded GBA games, you might not be looking at emulation too much. But if you're looking for a good way to play GBA games without emulating per se, there are also really interesting mods of certain models of DS that have the top removed because they either broke or got cracked or something. They'll remove the top folding portion of the DS, and that leaves you with the bottom portion, which is basically a large Game Boy Advance. And those have some incredible screens on them as well. So
That's true.
if you are interested, you can usually find those pretty affordably as well. So I don't know if that answers your question about the modded GBAs or not, but there are some really awesome options with nice big screens. But if you really just want that original Game Boy Advance's form factor, honestly, I wish I could help you more, but I don't think so. But I think an IPS screen, though, those are usually pretty dang awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? There are what is it called? There are a lot of these like companies are coming out with like
Oh yeah.
actual handheld devices that will just be like a straight up emulator. And there are a couple of those. Unfortunately, I have not tried any of those myself, but
From what I've
there
seen,
are
a lot of
good
them,
reviews.
some of them are really nice. A lot of them pale in comparison to like actually like from Sony kind of products, which is why I'm still leaning toward either Switch or like a console that's been hacked and modified that way. As just you're gonna have a lot of controller support, a lot of enthusiasts behind it that can make sure that it runs really well. That's kind of why I would lean that way, or toward modding an actual legitimate console, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, at least the hardware is good.
That's true.
Let's try and test it and true.
Exactly.
Yep.
Fluppy Dogs then says 10 was, in their opinion, the last Final Fantasy.
I saw that.
Yeah. Yep. And that's a pretty common sentiment, especially among the people who participated in my poll. They then say, I'm not sure what this was in response to, something that you said, I guess. They said, I'm not social, Baku.
Oh, I said that people are social animal.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
by and large, we're talking about patterns here.
It's like, but you're also a fluffy dog, so
Yeah. Now, I see. You already responded to this one a little bit with Eagle Knight. We don't speak about Final Fantasy 11. Hashtag taboo.
Look.
So,
mhm.
oh, I was going to say, bring back Fluffy Dogs then says, bring back Sakaguchi or Mistwalker back to consoles. Thank you in advance. Baku, you are forgiven.
Mistwalker. Yeah. You know what? Here's the thing. It's not that we don't want him back in console. He doesn't want to come back to console.
I wonder why that is.
Well, okay. Do you want to hear the him explanation, or do you want to? Okay, so the him explanation that came from Sakaguchi was that he didn't feel like consoles were innovative enough as a form of play.
Okay.
So that's what he said.
Okay, so what's the real reason that you were thinking?
Oh, I don't have a real reason. I was gonna say, do you want to hear what he said, or actually, I don't know what the alternative would have been.
Okay.
I don't have a reason as to why he doesn't want to go back to console.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's weird. Because when he made Fantasian, he didn't really use the most innovative platform. I mean, it was an iPad.
I feel like Sakaguchi's going through like a hipster phase. Like, oh yeah,
and Fantasian is definitely a bit hipster. But dude, I will tell you, it's actually pretty good. If you have a device on which to play it, I recommend it.
Apple TV, right? You have to play it through Apple TV.
Apple TV, or you have an iPad, you can connect a controller to it, play it in 4:3 aspect ratio, like I did. No, seriously, you and I talked the other day. You have a relatively recent iPad. Hook up a HDMI dongle and just play it on your TV.
That's true.
That's how I did it. I played it on my capture card that way.
I bought my mother a brand new iPad Pro last year, and she barely uses it, and it just upsets me.
Yeah, buy a 1 month subscription to Apple Arcade for like $5, or get the free trial or whatever. Play it and cancel your subscription the next month. Like you can play for free, basically.
And just in case anyone's wondering why I bought my mother an Apple product, is because my sister started off with an iPhone. It was up to me. She would have used Android, but no.
Honestly, it's okay. I would give an iPhone to somebody who I didn't want to like provide technical support to.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, that's a set it and forget it kind of device.
It is.
Every time they upgrade, it's just like, oh yeah, it's more of the same. You never have to like retrain somebody. Okay, well here's how you use your new phone.
That's true. Between a Pixel and a Samsung, and like I don't know, and name another Android platform, like their operating system is just a little different. It drives me crazy.
Yep, just the little things. And then finally, Fluffy Dog says, speaking of Dragon Quest, I'm collecting any spare DS or 3DS games of that series that you may have. Oh, spares. Oh yeah, spare Dragon Quest games on my DS. Can you offer the power of friendship and greenbacks? Oh man, yeah, those are a little on the steep side lately. Have you seen those prices lately, Baku?
Yeah, I mean, look, if anyone wants to just send me a spare Suikoden copy, I would really, a spare Xenoblade. Anybody? Yeah, just if you have just one extra.
Yeah, spare Xenosaga 3. If you have a spare Xenosaga 3, I could finally start playing Xeno games again.
I'll even pay for shipping. I'm just saying.
Oh man. Okay, so here's a DS game. Dragon Quest Heroes Rocket Slime. If you got it, it's only $56 if you go complete.
Oh, that's not bad.
Because it's Rocket Slime. It's not an actual mainline.
Yeah.
There you go. Anyways, guys, I think that about does it for today. It's been a great episode. It was a lot of fun to just kind of talk and go off the rails for a while. And if you guys enjoyed that, throw more comments at us. Throw more suggestions, cool ideas for us to talk about over the next week, maybe. If we have, not very much news to talk about. I quite enjoyed this. Well,
I did too.
All right, guys. Well, with that out of the way, I think it is about time we wrapped up tonight's show. So if you're new here and if you liked what you saw, please be sure to get subscribed or followed on whatever podcasting platform you enjoy us on. Leave us a rating or a thumbs up or whatever. It's super useful in helping us expand our reach toward our goals of world domination. So, Baku, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to leave the people with tonight?
No, actually, I think we're good. We're all
right.
thought out.
All right. We're all talked out. Baku, well, Baku, I hope you feel better in time for our next episode.
Thank you. I'll try to get better before then.
Have a good
I'm
night,
feeling
everybody.
the cough coming. Take care.